Hey, anyone notice how two of the most adored films of 2025, K-pop Demon Hunters and Sinners, are actually kind of the same movie? I know on paper that sounds like I'm trying to force another Barbenheimer meme out of two dramatically opposing movies, given that one is a blood-soaked, grim and gory post-Civil War R-rated historical horror picture, and the other is an animated musical for kids featuring superheroes whose enemies explode into glitter when they die. That does sound a little bit like I'm trying to compare Schindler's List to Shrek 2. But hear me out. When you look under the hood, you see that they're actually sharing a lot of the same parts. And besides, this mashup's not even as bonkers as one of the concepts of the two films in this video essay. Because if Korean pop idols and slaughtering demons in your free time can be a successful mashup, then drawing a thematic parallel between Sinners and KPDH should be practically boring. Plus, there's really only one degree of separation between these two anyway, and that's Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Which starred Benjamin Walker, who was in Flags of Our Fathers with Robert Patrick, who was in Jane Mansfield's car with Kevin Bacon. Yes. If you've seen both films, the first correlation you instantly drew was the role of music in both narratives. But here's the thing. Sinners and Hunters aren't just movies with music in them, they're both movies about music, and how that music is the cultural blood in their respective veins. In K-pop Demon Hunters, the powers of our supergroup, the Huntrix, are directly tied to the Hanmoon, a mystical link between artist and audience. Their demon-slaying abilities are directly powered by the love of their fans, which is both the most literal and positive depiction of a parasocial contract that I've ever seen. It's like Super Sentai, except instead of Zords and Morphers, it's Billboard and Spotify. In Sinners, the blues are a less tangible weapon used to fight the forces of darkness, but it's definitely framed as a metaphysical one. In the film's big musical centerpiece, I Lied to You, our protagonist Sammy is able to touch a part of his culture so deeply through the song that he channels the spirits of musicians both past and future. Sammy's song is said to specifically be performing the ritual of healing his people.
There are legends of people born with the gift of making music so true it can pierce the veil between life and death, conjuring spirits from the past
Somebody take me
and the future.
Where Huntrix are actively seeking out and destroying the darkness of their world, the Sinners are survivors in a cruel world where they are at risk of physical and cultural devastation at every turn. Huntrix uses their music to hunt evil. Black Americans use their music to endure it. While one film builds a magical mythology around their fandom, the other draws on centuries of real struggle and artistic expression. Both are saying the same thing. Music is powerful. Music is culture. Music cries out in the night. Music keeps the demons at bay, be they literal or historical. But even demons sing. Neither Sinners nor K-pop Demon Hunters carouse their needle drops to be solely for their protags. Both films make sure to get their bad guys at least one number as well, and these malevolent melodies are also worth musing on. In K-pop Demon Hunters, the antagonists take the form of the Soulja Boys, which I cannot not hear as
Soulja Boy Tell.
It is the same name. Anyhoodle, their big number, Soda Pop, is this aggressively pastel bubblegum track that sounds just as plausible to be a real chart topper. And that's the point. Their power isn't outwardly infernal, it's devilishly familiar. They're competing with Huntrix in the same arena, on the same turn. Their battlefield is just as much a bathhouse brawl as it is the Hot 100. And they work because they're not just monsters, they're rivals who might actually steal the girls' fan base. Sinners gives its vampires their own showstopper in the form of Rocky Road to Dublin. And while it might seem like this is operating on an entirely different track than the Soulja Boys' demonic appropriation, it's actually making the same kind of commentary, just with more subtlety. The thing about Rocky Road to Dublin is that it is also a cultural folk song, just an Irish immigrant one rather than Black American. And here's the historical context that you need. Irish immigrants were themselves once marginalized and oppressed as non-whites, but they were gradually welcomed into whiteness, especially around the Jim Crow era. Hey, would you look at that, exactly when Sinners is set. This was done precisely so that Irish immigrants could help swell the ranks of white supremacists against Black Americans and the inevitable civil rights movement. What was once an outsider culture was folded into the establishment and then weaponized to help bury Black voices even deeper. Therefore, having Rocky Road being performed by actual blood-sucking vampires, the metaphor becomes pretty clear. I already did a whole ass episode on this already, go watch that for the deeds. But suffice to say, Sinners is symbolically painting the visage of how cultural power gets stolen, sanitized, and redirected. Just like how Soulja Boy's Soda Pop is not really their song, it's a performance of stolen energy, a counterfeit version of something that's more authentic. Both films use these sinister songs to remind us that real monsters don't just take your life, they take your soul. If there was any element aside from the music that you notice as being analogous between these two pictures, I'd bet it'd be that they both have supernatural antagonists, as I mentioned above. What's more surprising is how similarly sympathetically each of these films presents them. Again, the kids' movie is just going to hit this beat a lot more bluntly. The Soulja Boys are just straight up demons, right? The titular ones of which to be hunted? Well, even if that was true, it's clear in the film that Soulja Boy Tellum are only demonstrably lieutenants to the real final boss of Guima. Even more so, the boys' leader, Jinyu, is totally sympathetic. Not only is he given the ever-popular tortured Tumblr BF storyline of a redemption arc, but Jinyu is also a former human whose memories were erased by Guima and has been acting as a puppet for him, strings and all. Sinners doesn't draw quite such a neon glowing line from its vampires to the true abominables behind the scene, and goes nowhere near as far in actually trying to redeem their ghouls. But it is hard for anything to look like the worst option when standing next to the Ku Klux Klan. There's also something hauntingly beautiful about the Rocky Road to Dublin scene. The fact that it's drawn from this honest cultural tradition and the overall framing of the set piece just do a lot to bestow this strange humanity upon the film's horrors. This is why I think both films have connected with people, even if it's just subconsciously. Unfortunately, this is also when they both lose me a little bit. Yay! Now comes the part where I get to piss off all of the stands. As much as I've been glazing both pictures so far, honestly, neither of them clears a B+ for me. When it comes to Sinners, the vampires... Don't say suck, don't say suck, don't say suck, don't say suck, don't say suck. Are... suck. What do you even pay me for? It's not even the vamps themselves that drag things down so much as how they're employed. The action choreography is mostly dull wire work and clumsy football tackles. The humans are basically water balloons filled with red paint that explode into geysers at the slightest splinter. The CGI looks almost as bad as Blade 1. Oh, and the climax is rock stupid for such an otherwise smart film. We spent 2 hours weaving this taut metaphor about systemic evil, and then the vampires are defeated when every single one of these dumb mother suckers just walks outside at dawn. K-pop Demon Hunters flubs in a way that's more core concept. It never really manages to overcome the hurdle of how dumb its title is, which just screams, oh, the drugs have kicked in now. Where something like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter understands how absurd its premise is and intrinsically winks at the audience, KPDH tries so damned hard to justify its setup and just never gets there. We get weeks of exposition trying to explain why internationally famous music celebrity and paranormal paramilitary superhero draw from the same recruitment pool, and the more the movie explains it, the dumber it feels. Ironically, Sinners succeeds far better by just not explaining where its boogeymen come from than KPDH does by hammering it in endlessly. So here's the TLDR. Sinners works better in concept, while KPDH has better Sakuga, but at the end of the day, they both kind of whiff on the execution. And this brings me to my real question, which is why? And why now? Why have two of the most beloved films of the year, albeit from vastly different fan bases, both landed as musical tributes to marginalized US cultures threatened by forces of appropriation, domination, and embodied by literal demons? Is it the rising tide of global awareness? A united rebuke of late-stage capitalism? Are these twin succeeding stars heralding the approach of an age of fusion between pre- and post-internet cultures where niche and culturally significant can be preserved and held by those it means the most to while also being shared and appreciated with the entire world? Honestly, nah, it's probably just a coincidence.
I made it for the tiger, but the bird keeps taking it.